You have people who think it's a deity and people who think it's a four-footed spawn of Satan.
No Montana animal evokes emotion like the wolf. One reason for that is a misunderstanding brought on by myths.
We all grew up reading Little Red Riding Hood and the Three Little Pigs, and that's really sometimes our only experience with wolves.
That has an impression on our psyche, and it has nothing to do with real wolves.
Real wolves feed on elk, and even that spurs controversy as some say wolves help elk.
If wolves were to deplete their food source, they would also die. They remove those unhealthy or unproductive animals from a herd and essentially can help improve the health of an elk herd.
Do wolves hurt elk populations? Absolutely. I think in some places you can't deny it. Is that the case everywhere? No.
One thing everyone can agree on is how wolves made their way into western Montana. They crossed the Bitterroot Mountain Range after their reintroduction into Idaho in the mid-1990s.
Wolves have been so successful here in Montana and surrounding states is because we do have so many deer and elk, and it's created such a good habitat.
And they eat a lot, from 2.5 to 5 pounds of meat a day, including up to 20 pounds a sitting.
2 years ago, we picked up 15, 16 dead elk carcasses all over this, area.
But by taking big game, wolves actually help other scavenger species like birds, foxes, and even bears that feed on the leftovers.
They also distribute the way prey use the landscape, and by doing that, that allows more vegetation growth potentially in some areas where elk would otherwise browse very, very heavily.
Like humans, wolves are highly social, living in a family that works together to hunt and raise the young.
In Montana, our average pack size is about 5 animals, but they can get larger than that. They can get up to maybe 15 or 20 members in a pack. Usually only the alpha pair are the ones that breed, and wolves breed once a year. They breed in February and have their pups in April. And usually they have about 4 to 6 pups a year.
Younger wolves hoping to start their own packs leave in search of a mate, and that's when the hunter can become the hunted.
And they do get killed by other wolves as they're traveling, through the landscape and passing through other wolves' territories.
But man remains the wolf's #1 predator, and it is he who will decide its future in Montana. Mark Holyoak for Montana's news station. Wolves once roamed the West in countless numbers. But that changed as the frontier changed.
The American settlement of the West was really hard on our wildlife. Wolves were not the only species that people tried to eradicate.
Settlers in the 1800s needed wild game just to survive, but they used deer, elk, and even bison pelts as a type of currency to buy or trade for other goods. As wild game disappeared, wolves turned their attention to cattle.
It was a big challenge in terms of coexisting with predators, largely because a lot of the prey base was largely wiped out at that time, and people brought in livestock and did have more conflicts with predators due to having livestock.
Montana instituted its first wolf bounty in the early 1880s, and that was the beginning of the near extinction of the gray wolf. Those programs trapped, shot, poisoned, and even dug wolves from their dens, resulting in more than 5,400 wolf pelts in the first year alone. And by the mid-1930s, there were no more wolves in Montana.
It's an incredible victory. This has been going on for so long. So many folks, and we've really got something to celebrate now.
6 decades later, under federal protection from the Endangered Species Act, 15 wolves from Canada are captured and reintroduced into Yellowstone Park, with 17 more released in central Idaho.
The reintroduction project basically fast-forwarded us ahead, years, maybe decades, in wolf recovery.
With miles of countryside to freely roam and protected by federal law, the wolf population exploded, officially reaching recovered status in 2002.
The difference now from 100 years ago here in Montana is, yes, we have more prey, we have more food, which has allowed wolves to flourish.
Now, aided by $24 million in funding, an estimated 1,500 wolves live in the Northern Rockies, with more than 400 in Montana. A feared predator once on the verge of extinction is about to become just the 18th of 1,255 animals to leave the endangered species list.
The pendulum it's really swung from an era of extermination to an era of protection.
I think it shows success, like the eagle recovery, the wolf recovery. It's a good thing that we've all been part of.
It's really the success of habitat restoration that enables us to have wolves and a healthy population of all wild animals.
The history of wolves and humans, a very challenging history. Actually, biologically recovering wolves has been pretty easy. The hardest part was getting past the political obstacles and getting people in the region to accept and tolerate having wolves back across the landscapes.
So now it's up to man to learn how to live with wolves in the long run. Mark Holyoak for Montana's news station.
It's a real controversial subject.
I want good old Teddy Roosevelt. Kill them all.
There's just an absolute wholesale slaughter made possible by the federal government.
Montana is home to more than 400 wolves, a population 4 times larger than the federal minimum requirement. State plans this year call for reducing the population by 130 wolves, with an eventual goal of at least 150 wolves statewide, including 15 breeding pairs.
We're interested in maintaining a recovered population of wolves. They need to be managed to fit into the landscape that includes ranchers and other wildlife.
We want cattle and wolves to coexist. Well, that's not even possible.
There's the viewpoint right there. They can just stand there and they can see the whole field.
But where there are wolves and ranchers together, conflict is often inevitable.
Wolves do kill livestock. Wolves, can come close to your house, and those are real conflicts that we deal with.
U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service data from 1996 to 2006 shows 220 confirmed wolf kills of cattle, 509 confirmed sheep kills, and 101 dog kills in the Northern Rockies. Over that same time, management specialists put down 249 wolves. Each
particular conflict that we deal with out there, needs a unique solution. And sometimes that means hazing and harassing wolves away from people, and other times we kill problem wolves.
Ranchers received nearly $1 million in compensation for wolf depredation over the last 20 years from a fund set up by the Defenders of Wildlife. Now that responsibility shifts to the state, which plans on reducing its population with a wolf hunt.
Every wolf that is harvested would have to be reported. When a harvest quota is reached, then the season would close.
I'm for that. It shows a positive step in management where we have the ability to manage this animal, and it gives it an elevation as a big game animal.
The Montana wolf population is the most tenuous in the region. I think that allowing hunters to kill up to 1/3 of the population or more is irresponsible, and it just is too soon, too fast, and too many wolves.
As soon as there's hunting applied to wolves, then they're pretty well behaved and they get themselves back into the forest.
So it make it almost impossible to hunt them, because you can't use any calls, you can't shoot over bait.
They simply cannot stand up to these vicious killing machines.
Others, like those behind the Idaho-based website SaveOurElk.com, think management won't be enough.
Like it or not, our wildlife are fastly disappearing.
We're going to run out of elk before these people realize that we've got a wolf problem.
Statistically, we know that hunter harvest is higher, if not higher than it has been before wolves were reintroduced to the region.
Even though wolves are solidly back from the brink, emotions continue to stir as a predator again roams its native soil.
We have a missed opportunity. We should be celebrating and not being worried about what would happen after delisting under these conditions.
I think that you can wish all you want, but you're not going to wish wolves away. I believe they're here to stay.
Mark Holyoak for Montana's news station.